My wife is mad I took our daughter to the park. How do I get her to understand? Throwaway because wife knows real account. This is honestly so stupid, but my wife is really upset about it. Wife is 33 and I'm 35. Married for 2 years. Together for 4. We have a almost 4-year-old daughter and a 3-month-old daughter. I was fortunate enough to be able to take an 8-month leave from work to stay home with the kids. Mostly to help with the baby. My wife works in healthcare, so she was only able to take 5 weeks off. She's a very hard worker and she's not home very often. Ever since she had the baby, she's been acting very strange towards me. When she comes, I try to initiate conversation and she only responds with short and single-word replies. And this has been happening for months. But she has no problem with her behavior towards the kids. A few days ago, she told me she was leaving work early and taking our older daughter to the park while I stayed home with the baby. Long story short, my wife was late, and by the time she would have gotten home, they only would have had roughly 5 minutes at the park before nap time. I didn't want my daughter to be disappointed since she was promised a trip to the park. So I just took her and the baby. We were gone for about 25 minutes and got home at the same time as my wife. I took my daughter for her nap while my wife handled the baby. When they were both out, she immediately started lecturing me about taking her to the park without her. I explained how I only took her because I didn't want her to miss her nap, because then she would be grumpy and/or wouldn't fall asleep on time that night. She kept telling me she didn't care about that and that I took their time together away. She thinks I should have just waited until she got back because she doesn't know when she's getting another day off. Despite me explaining why it wasn't going to work. It's been days and she's still angry about it and is being really cold towards me. I'm basically just asking for help on how to get her to see my side. TLDR, my wife is mad I didn't wait for her to take our daughter to the park, even though waiting for her would have negatively affected our daughter's sleep schedule. This is about more than the park. But only your wife has the info needed for you to figure out what it is. 5 weeks is shorter than the minimum recommended time post-birth if it was vaginal and had no complications. She may have gone back to work too early. Her behavior towards you since giving birth speaks of something deeper and more long-lasting than frustration about this one time. Has she been screened for a postpartum mood disorder? Did you have any arguments around that time? Any major changes in her life that coincided with the birth? Ideally, the two of you would talk about it and figure this out as a couple. Any chance she'd allow a third party, therapist, counselor, spiritual advisor, to facilitate that? This is so much bigger than the park, and the only way you're going to get to the bottom of the issue is to talk to your wife. Couples counseling could be useful here. I'd suggest she feels like she's not bonding with the kids enough and wanted some one-on-one time with the toddler. But I'm not your wife and you two need to talk. This isn't about the playground. This is about her resenting you for having the ability to spend all day with your daughters for 8 months while she, the one who just carried and pushed a whole-ass human out of her body 3 months ago, was forced to go back to work and can barely get the time to see her kids. I get that kids need a set schedule, but your wife barely gets any time off and is really trying here to get family time in when she can. Do you know the next time your wife will have the chance to take them to the park? Neither does she. But you get that opportunity every day for the next 5 months. She just wants to be able to spend quality time with her kids, and you, as a supportive partner, should try your best to help her in that pursuit. It wouldn't have been the end of the world if your daughter was late for a nap one day. She might have been a little cranky later, but at least she would have had the opportunity to have some fun with her mom for one day. Kids remember who shows up for them and your wife, despite her hectic schedule and job. feelings of frustration, and postpartum struggles, is trying to show up. Don't let something as silly as a postponed nap time for one day stop her from that. Please give your wife some grace here and try to see her side of things. This is about far more than the park. And I'll tell you why. 5 weeks maternity leave is not enough time to recover from giving birth. Health concerns, complications, mental health, PPD aside, she most likely resents you for getting 8 months off when she got 5 weeks. She likely feels like you were allotted the quality time with your daughters that she didn't get. She works in health care, which, regardless of the field, is an extremely hectic, time-consuming career. She barely gets to spend time with your daughters already. And she specifically told you that she wanted to take time out of this day to take her daughter to the park while you looked after the baby. You took that from her because you were concerned with your daughter having a later nap than usual. You could have called her to discuss this with her. You could have texted her to ask her about it. I assume she was busy at work. And if she didn't respond to these, don't go. Wait for her to get home instead of making this decision on your own. Again, this was quality time with your children that your wife missed out on. I completely understand that babies and young children need a routine. But was it absolutely crucial that your daughter didn't take her nap 30 minutes later than usual? I'm basically just asking for help on how to get her to see my side. Give up on that. You have already said your piece, and if she is not ready to hear it, nothing you can say will make any difference. I understand your desire to stick to a routine for the kids. But you need to understand, as some others have pointed out, that your daughter's routine is not as critical as your wife's need to feel like a mother. You short-circuited that. You possibly having a cranky daughter for one day was not too high of a price to pay for your wife. To feel loved, go to your wife. Tell her you love her and that you are sorry that you took her mother-daughter time away. You thought you were doing the right thing at the time, but you now realize it was not the best choice. And that you will make it up to her. And then do exactly that. Sometimes. And this is probably one of those times. We need to take one for the team. I'm going to be straight with you. You are being too rigid and it is squeezing your wife out of her own family. She is likely dealing with some resentment that you get all this time with your kids and she doesn't, and that the times she does get a chance to be with them, you override or choose to be rigid about things that really don't matter. And you're modeling that rigid inflexibility to your children. There are numerous ways you could have made room for your wife and your family. Move your daughter's nap time up that day, just in case. Push her nap time back and put her to bed a bit later that night. Skip her nap and put her to bed early that night. Communicated with your wife about her ETA and offer to meet her at the park with the kids, and you would leave with the baby when she arrived. There were all kinds of solutions, but the route you chose was not to deviate the slightest from your rigid routine because that was what you valued the most, sticking to your schedule. You aren't making room for your wife and you wonder where her anger and resentment is coming from. She went back to work far too early postpartum, is working her ass off at a difficult job supporting the family, is feeling left out and marginalized, and you confirm that by letting her know that you don't have the tiniest bit of understanding or empathy for her, that her desperate need to spend some time with her kids is not worth you adjusting nap time for one lousy day. Honestly, a nap could have been skipped, pushed back for mom to spend time with her. It would have just been a single rough night and that's it. I feel like you think you did the right thing. I can't help but think this would have taken one phone call to avoid. Why not call your wife and together decide whether it's worth delaying nap time? I'm basically just asking for help on how to get her to see my side. No offense, dude, but this is pretty selfish. Why aren't you here asking for help to see each other's sides? You just assume you're right and she needs to be convinced you're right? If you were out the house for a total 25 minutes including journey to and from, surely she didn't get much more than 5 minutes at the park anyway. Seems you was a bit insensitive. Was going to the park after nap time somehow impossible? She's jealous, and hurt, and angry. You get to stay home for 8 months with the kids and she got 5 weeks. She is missing so much and she's jealous. But how can she say that? How can she articulate that without sounding like an ungrateful butt? You are doing what she wants to do. You are bonding with the kids and playing. And seeing the new baby all day. I know it's hard for you, but these are the things she wants to do. You are living the life she wants. Be kind. Tread carefully. Talk to her. Tell her you aren't trying to take anything from her. Would she like it if you left her alone one day with the kids? Just her and them? What can you do to make her feel wanted and needed? Because right now she doesn't. She's taking care of strangers while missing her kids. This hurts on a level one can't describe. Did you have some ability to call or message your wife with your intentions? While I can't speak on PPD, I can say it seems she's understandably resentful you are able to take 8 months off and she had to go back to work full-time. She clearly stated she was taking the older daughter to the park. And you blatantly disregarded it and then implied she didn't know her own child's schedule. Armchair diagnosis. She feels a separation from her children and you are making it worse. Apologize to your wife. Plan a day for her and the older daughter on her next day off. Honestly, stop being tone deaf and learn some empathy that extends beyond yourself. My wife is mad over something stupid that's her own fault anyway for not being around, is the gist here, and it's very invalidating toward your wife. Your wife is angry and distant for real reasons that are understandable. You need to understand that and make more effort to understand her side of things. Were you just worried about having to deal with your daughter's sleep schedule change? Because to me it sounds like your wife really wanted to spend time with her and you went ahead without her. Why couldn't you call your wife and tell her to meet you at park? Your wife is a HCW and has been overworked and stressed for the last 2 years. She just had a baby and went right back to work. She feels guilty. She left her baby home and is probably a bit jealous of your time with the kids. You need to understand what she is feeling. I am sure this was just a tipping point for her emotions. Forget trying to get her to see your side and instead try to see her side. You are being a bit weird and controlling about the nap schedule. She's almost 4. You should try harder to facilitate your wife having quality time with her kids. It sounds like there's a chance that your wife might have postpartum depression. I can't imagine going back to work after only 5 weeks. Even if she doesn't have PPD, she's probably tired, stressed and full of mom guilt. As a new mom, I can tell you it's real, intense and often irrational, for not being able to spend more time and do more with her children. She's likely upset about missing out on this activity with your daughter and is unfairly taking it out on you. Try to understand where she's coming from and try to help her be able to spend more quality time with both of your children. Perhaps that means occasionally delaying a nap so she can take them to the park or out for ice cream or whatever the special activity may be. If the roles were reversed, everyone would be calling her horrible for not letting the dad spend quality time because he works so hard to provide for the family. Assuming you're a dad only because you seem highly unaware of what happens to the female body pre and postpartum. But you could also be mom. She really wanted that special time and you did take it from her. And I get it because I have these issues with my partner sometimes. But it's only a problem if it's chronic and severely interferes with bed routine. A delayed nap for a 3-year-old isn't that detrimental. So maybe let loose a bit and let your wife also be a parent. She did make them, so she is allowed to have time with them and make some decisions about their needs too. I can see both sides. While your point on structure makes sense, and you were trying to help, I really think a slight adjustment for one day so your wife has her time is fine. My kids slept around a certain time. Sometimes a little earlier, other times much later. Just depends on how tired they are. Their teens turned out just fine. I would think that since she only got 5 weeks, this is extremely important to her. Sounds like she might be a little resentful that you got 8 months though. That shouldn't be a point of contention. But jealousy isn't exactly logical. I'd say keep up with how you're doing. But always make room for mom when she's able to get that quality time with the kids. It's important to all of them.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.